So much for a civil GOP primary for governor. Joining us on Columbus on the Record this week, Ann Fisher, host of All Sides with Ann Fisher on 89.7 NPR News. Jim Siegel, State House reporter for the Columbus Dispatch. Mike Gonidakis, Republican strategist. And Sandy Tice, director of Progress Ohio. The Republican race for governor has taken a nasty turn, a very sharp, very nasty turn. Mary Taylor has been going hard after Mike DeWine since the start of the campaign, suggesting he's too old, too liberal, and now that he liked disco.
In 1976, the Big Red Machine won its second consecutive World Series. Disco was sweeping the nation, and the Carter malaise was beginning. 1976 was also the year that Mike DeWine won his first election. From prosecutor to state senator to congressman, lieutenant governor to U.S. senator to attorney general, Mike DeWine has been on a government payroll for the better part of 42 years.
That ad was an internet ad, but then Taylor's PAC started running an ad on TV saying DeWine supports Hillary Clinton more than President Trump. DeWine largely has ignored Mary Taylor to this point. Well, he's ignoring her no more.
Is Mary Taylor ready to be governor? Taylor can't keep her staff, raising questions about her leadership and oversight. She was busted using the state airplane for personal use, and Taylor is dogged by rumors that she skips out on work. A slacker whose work schedule is almost untraceable. Mary Taylor, unfit and unqualified. Mike DeWine is a proven conservative, endorsed by the Ohio Republican Party and Ohio Right to Life. Mike DeWine for governor.
If calling her a slacker was not enough, the DeWine campaign has also set up a Twitter account calling Mary Taylor unfit, unqualified, with pictures of her yelling and sitting on a jet ski. One tweet criticized her use of a state plane, calling it criminal, and used the hashtag #LockHerUp. Jim Siegel, Mike DeWine has gone the full Mike Flynn. Why has he gone so negative?
You know, there's a lot of theories as to why they're doing this. I mean, the simplest one is that Mary Taylor's PAC spent $700,000 on an attack ad against him, saying that he, attacking him on immigration in China, and basically saying if you like Trump, you won't like Mike DeWine. So they're simply responding in kind, not letting these things go unchallenged. But there's other theories about what do the polls really look like. My thought, there also could just be the fact that, look, Mary Taylor has said a lot of nasty things about not only Mike DeWine, but the Republican Party in general, and they're just ready to punch her back and tell her, look, we're not just going to stand here and take it. And frankly, they've got so much money. The DeWine campaign has so much money that spending $500,000, $1 million or whatever to beat up Mary Taylor a little bit in the primary is not going to have any impact on whether they have enough money to win in November.
But Mike, it's not a good look for the Republican Party.
That wasn't the best week we've ever had, of course, in politics. But, what's happened to Mary Taylor? I mean, she put stuff out that Mike DeWine wasn't even at the Republican convention. My Facebook page has pictures of Mike and Fran DeWine and myself on the floor of the convention. And look, at the end of the day, it's still a double-digit race. She's desperate. She's throwing everything at the wall that she can. Every county party's endorsed Mike, Ohio Right to Life, Ohio Republican Party. There's elected officials unendorsing Mary right now. I like Mary Taylor still, and I know she's just, and this is politics at its best, I guess, but I would just tell Mike, don't punch down. You don't need to stoop to that level. Just focus on the future.
Well, he already has stooped to that level. I mean, day late, dollar short on that score. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. I mean, anyone that is as secure looking as he would be with all of those endorsements, with all of that money, it's just a surprise that he's punching back. I'd love to see if they have any internal polling that they're looking at, something to measure and to better understand this.
Sandy, John Kasich, when he won in 2010, said they knew they had Ted Strickland when Ted Strickland went negative right away. Now, negative campaigning is part of any campaign, but Mike DeWine is seen as a nice guy, family guy, a lot of kids, grandkids. He has the barbecue with his wife. Now he's these negative, nasty ads that can't help him.
I think it's closer than it looks, and this is a change year, and we have a guy who's been on the ballot in one race or another for almost a half a century, and we have a woman on the ballot in the year of the woman, and I think he's clearly nervous about that.
Does it have a blowback with moderates, Jim, do you think, in the general, assuming that DeWine holds this big lead and advances to the general?
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm never quite sure how tough primary fights are going to end up bleeding over into a general election, especially when, in May we're going to vote, and then we're not going to go back to the ballot for several months. So who knows at that point? But I will say that, you talk about Mike DeWine as the nice grandfatherly figure. Mike DeWine is a throw elbows politician when it comes down to it. This is not the first time Mike DeWine has mixed it up big time with his opponent, and that's look, I'm not criticizing him, that's fine, but that's just it's not all ice cream socials and grandchildren when it comes time to get into the political arena.
Well, he did criticize John Glenn
Exactly.
for. I saw it on Twitter today. What on earth has John Glenn done? Play on words there.
It was that, and he got a lot of blowback from that at the time. It hurt him at the time. It was
a mock
national
on the Energizer Bunny,
hero.
and they had the bunny in an astronaut uniform. He keeps owing and owing and owing because of the money John Glenn owed, and that blew up in his face.
Is there? And ultimately, the candidate is responsible for the campaign.
That's true.
But could there be over-enthusiastic campaign aides who are behind this that are perhaps taking it a little more personal, Mike, and they get a little, overzealous, and that hurts a candidate in the long run?
I suspect the campaign staff had a long talk with the boss this week about what they're going to do on social media, not what they're going and where they should stay. So I think there were some mistakes made by some campaign staffers along the way. But at the end of the day, you're right. It's Mike DeWine. It's his name, and he has to take responsibility for it.
I will say it was interesting when the Twitter account from DeWine's campaign called her criminal.
Yeah.
Now, Mike, that's very interesting in that coming from the man who is the chief law enforcement officer of the state, if it was really criminal, I think he could have done something about it. And considering she is still an elected office holder in the administration of Governor John Kasich, and does John Kasich think it was criminal? Now, John Kasich didn't like it at the time, asked her to repay the money for that plane ride that we're talking about in the ad, but it was, going the step to basically call it criminal and using the lock her up slogan, that was a step further than I think some of this other stuff has been.
Do you see the two candidates, and do you see them debating? Mike DeWine has not been willing to debate Mary Taylor to this point.
Well, I mean, that's going to be the true telltale, because if he doesn't debate her, then you know that he's doing very well and the polls are in his favor, or whatever they're looking at. And if he does debate her, then you know that there was more to this pushback than just getting sick and tired of having Mary Taylor kick their butt.
That disco ad was pretty good.
Yeah.
That disco ad was pretty good.
Well,
brought back a lot of memories.
It's a legitimate point that she's making when it comes to his time in office. Many have done it before.
Fond memories of the AMC Gremlin that ad brought back for me. Anyway, never had one, but I saw him around. John Kasich traveled to California this week, where he preached his common sense conservative message to moderate Republicans. The event was hosted by former California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger. Kasich talked about how he's bringing Ohioans together.
And now, Arnold, we're talking to the legislature about guns. And we got the people in favor of the no change in the Second Amendment with those who want to change, and we reached a consensus.
Governor, of course, failed to mention that previously he signed bills that allow people to carry concealed guns in bars and daycare centers, nor that the legislature likely will ignore his gun control proposal. But his message, Ann, was well received among this group of moderates. It was the same speech he gave at the State of the State address, minus the philosophy. But how do you think it plays out there?
Oh, it plays like you would expect it to play. I mean, he was looking in a mirror. He was preaching to the choir. It's probably a way to raise money and that sort of a thing. But he's putting his toe in the water. He's showing people what he's made of. I don't think it really makes that much difference in the big picture at all.
Mike, you sound like a Democrat at times in that speech.
Yeah, we have a great governor, and we two-term elected. He's got 8 months left. Come back to Ohio. We've got major problems. We need him here. We don't. After 8 months from there, he can do whatever he wants. But I think his last 8 months should be spent in Ohio tackling opioid issues and other issues that are facing our families, kitchen table issues.
That's crazy.
Why? That's what we elected him to do. Why is it crazy?
Because it's obvious that he hasn't been interested in that for 2 years when he was running for president. I didn't hear you saying that back then.
He's a great CEO, and he should come back.
I think he's going to New Hampshire in April,
Yeah.
early April.
Jimmy says he hates politics, which I find odd for someone who works in the political world. But he wants policy, and he does talk a lot about policy in these speeches. How much of truth is there that he hates talking politics? He hates being a politician.
he hates losing when he doesn't get what he wants. I mean, if that's what he means by that. I mean, look, you got to have this. You've got to have politics to get to policy.
Yes.
I mean, that's just the realities. Now, I understand he doesn't like the politics for the sake of politics. Now that, if there's no means to an end, I get the frustration there. And like you said, he just talked about that gun proposals that, we're talking to the legislature. You notice he didn't say we've introduced legislation, because that hasn't happened. And talking to the legislative leaders again this week, they're not yet giving any indication that in what is an election year that they are going to roll any of these proposals out, even though most of them seem to be fairly popular. These are not. This is what you would pretty much call the low-hanging fruit on the gun debate. The things that he's talked about, bump stocks and things like that.
Kasich's trips to California came as a new poll came out from Baldwin Wallace University that shows that if the presidential primary were held today, Donald Trump would easily beat John Kasich, 62% to 27%. Sandy Tice, do you believe that? This is among Ohio Republicans. This is just among Ohio Republicans. Sandy
I
Tice,
do that.
you believe
The reason why he's not here working with the legislature is because they don't like him either. So he goes out to places where he can act like a moderate, like California, and he can get some affirmation from people who do think that he is a moderate, even though he's not.
I think when he ran in the primary against Donald Trump and he won, the Ohio primary, he was the only one he won, it was because people it was the hometown guy and they were voting for their guy. Now, so many of those people are ticked off because he has not fallen in step with the president, and he has been his biggest critic ever since, and before and ever since Inauguration Day. And that's why I think there's been so much fallout.
Mike, you support President Trump. Do you believe that number, 62 to 27%?
I do. Look, whether it's a Democrat president or Republican president, the rank and file are going to support the president over the governor, over a senator, or anyone else. So I think that number's solid.
Does it say anything? Does that number help? Does that help Mary Taylor, because she has really tied herself to President Trump, and then we talked about the negative av, why she's doing it.
No, it doesn't help me. I'm sorry.
No.
It doesn't help Mary, because just yesterday, Bob Paduchik, the number 2 at the RNC, came out with a stinging criticism of Mary and in support for Mike DeWine. That's basically Trump, Trump's guy, Bob Paduchik, Ohio's own, speaking in support of Mike DeWine.
That's just telling me that they're seeing some numbers that show her doing better, and he's coming out with a stinging. Why stinging? Why now?
And there has to be a difference between the campaign officials and rank and file Republicans in.
Absolutely. I'm telling you, this is a change year, and Mary's the change.
Even though she's been in office for.
Yeah, but she hadn't been it for 50 years.
It's all relative, I guess. Frustrated by the lack of action at the State House and in Washington, Columbus City officials this week presented a series of gun control measures. Among the proposals, the city would ban bump stocks, it would ban the sale of imitation firearms to minors, the city would ban commercial gun sales in residential areas. This is really all the city can do because state law specifically prohibits cities from enforcing gun laws stricter than state laws. Sandy Tice, do these proposed ordinances have any teeth, or is this largely symbolic?
I think they do have teeth, and like you said, the state law does not allow cities to do laws that are more stringent than state or federal laws, so they have to find areas where they can horn in, and I think we're going to see meaningful gun reform. These kids in California or in Florida who have brought their energy and their pain to the table are going to change the world. And I think not only are we going to see this ordinance in Columbus pass, but I think we're going to see some movement in the General Assembly. You mentioned that poll. Baldwin Wallace also looked at what polls well in the state in terms of gun reform, and there are a lot of things that are meaningful.
Jim, why can't cities pass their own gun laws? What was the reason why this, aside from the state being very in favor of gun owners' rights, state legislature, why can't cities do their own ordinances on guns?
Well, the argument is that if you're a gun owner, you don't want to have to follow different laws as you're passing through each city and town in the state of Ohio. If I can carry a gun in a park in Akron, I should also be able to carry a gun in a park in Columbus. And so the argument was to make it all a uniform standard for gun control and for gun rights, and that has been what's carried the day in the legislature. Of course, the thing I've said many times over my career here covering the State House is that, as always, the legislature is very much in favor of local control until they're not. And in this one, they're not. They don't think the locals should be making their own gun laws. And frankly, I looked down this list of the Columbus ones, and there aren't too, except for maybe banning bump stocks. There's not a whole lot here that are so directly tied to guns that it would probably wouldn't step on much of this, but I guess we'll have to wait and see what the court says on that.
One of the things it would do, though, it would keep hands out of people who are convicted of domestic violence or who have a protection order against someone because of domestic violence. Guns are used a lot in those type of cases, and I think that would be meaningful change.
If you look at this map of Columbus, you can see, I mean, with all the townships, it'd be impossible to drive from one end of the city to the other with a gun in your trunk without having to violate the varying laws. So you can see why the uniformity. The rally is tomorrow, and they're expecting, I've seen estimates between 5,000 and 20,000 people at the State House. This is the rally for gun rights, inspired by the students. What kind of effect do you think that'll have at the State House?
The rally for gun restrictions.
Yeah. What kind of impact will that have on the legislature?
I don't think it's going to have much impact at all on the legislature. I mean, I think they may have some meaningful movement, but I don't anticipate it personally. I don't think that it's going to be anything very substantive. Not in Ohio. We saw what happened in Florida, but that was the state where the tragedy occurred, and I think that for Ohio lawmakers to take that kind of step would kind of take that sort of thing. It will be interesting, though, because these kids are coming from all over the place. They're not just coming from, Democratic districts. So, and I'll be interested to see how many parents are there as well.
Mike, this is a little different than in past aftermaths of mass shootings. Do you see any movement from gun rights supporting lawmakers at the State House?
No, I think there's been some proposals to make sure we have a security guard in schools, and that could be local control. I think we're going to give some money to the school districts to pass safety levies or give them the ability to pass safety levies. That's a good thing. But they're picking the wrong time to do this this march to save lives, if that's it's right, because they're picking a Saturday. The legislature won't be there. They just went on spring break for the next 2 weeks, so their voices will be heard by the media, and that's as good. Let's cover it. Freedom of assembly. I support it, but they picked the wrong day at the wrong time to do it.
Well, it was set in Washington. I think that's when Ohio is just following suit. But
A couple
it's a
months
good
ago,
point,
there
though.
was some gun restriction law that was passed, or that was in the General Assembly, and I saw on Facebook that there was one legislator in the hearing, and people started complaining, so I went over there with my phone to take pictures. I got kicked out of the hearing, but nobody was listening to them. Now at least they're listening, and that's a big change. I mean, their parents in the audience, their kids were either killed in gun violence or they were shot and injured, and they come here to petition their government. No one's even listening?
Well, I'll tell you the State House rallies are fine, and it's good to show that they're, if you're pushing that, that side of things, it's good to show that there is support behind you. But until the majority starts to see polling that shows that this is an issue that's going to turn people, or they start hearing from their major donors that this is an issue that their donors want to see changed, then there's going to be limited action.
Okay. Some Republican lawmakers have introduced a bill that would ban abortions in Ohio completely. No exceptions for rape or incest or for the life of the mother. Doctors could face charges. The woman could face charges. The bill goes well beyond restrictions passed by lawmakers in recent years. Mike Gonadakis, you head Ohio Right to Life. Do you support this measure?
First of all, I believe all life begins at conception. I've worked for the past decade to eliminate abortion and to end this tragedy in our country. So with that being said, this legislation is 284 pages. We got it 3 days ago, the same time you got it, Jim, or your paper received it. So we had nothing to do with it. We weren't involved. We're still reviewing it. We're still looking sideways at it because it doesn't make sense. I've had 15 state reps call me and say, do you think it says this or that? And I said, well, I don't know. You guys wrote it. So to say whether we support it or not, we can't, because it's written in such a unique, and I'm just going to leave you the word unique there, that we don't know what it means. I mean, there's smart lawyers out there that say it could criminalize a woman if she has a miscarriage. We don't support that. Of course we don't. So there appears to be a lot of problems with it, but 284 pages long. Give us a little bit of time to review it.
Well, on principle, you did not support the heartbeat bill.
Correct.
Ohio Right to Life. This goes even beyond that.
Yeah.
Even though ultimately many people say the heartbeat bill was a complete ban on abortion. So logic says you're not going to support a complete ban if it's written to say that.
Well, there's 9 men and women on the United States Supreme Court. You need 5 votes. Right now we only have 4. It's that simple.
Okay. Sandy, is this symbolic by these
I
lawmakers?
have
do you think?
no idea what's on their mind. It's unconstitutional. It's mean. It's not going to go anywhere. It's a waste of our time.
Jim, the heartbeat bill did pass the legislature. Governor Kasich vetoed it. Could the same thing happen with this bill?
It's possible, I guess. You know, when it comes to issues, there's two issues I don't tend to try to predict too well, which are guns and abortion, because at any point they could suddenly decide we're going to pick this up and run with it for any number of reasons, but you know, like you said, I mean, they just passed the Down syndrome abortion ban, and that's all. A federal judge has already put a stop to that. You know, it's going to get appealed, but you know, so it's, you know, like Mike said, you know, the courts have ruled on this, and there's no indication right now that would change. I don't know if they really want to run a bill at this point up to the Supreme Court and try this. I mean, that's a question more for Mike, and if that's a good strategy or not at this time.
It's not.
Yeah.
But the other bills, you do support the Down syndrome, even though courts have struck that down. Why is that one different than this one? I mean, ultimately, you want abortion to be made illegal.
Our Down syndrome bill is an anti-discrimination bill. People with special needs deserve to have the same rights as everyone else, and yet 80 to 90% of babies that are diagnosed with Down syndrome in the womb are aborted. That's a tragedy. The Americans with Disabilities Act applies the minute that child's born that just happens to have an extra chromosome. That's why we supported that bill. And our goal is to end abortion in the United States of America.
All right. Let's get to our next topic. If you add up all the team values, the Cleveland Browns, Cavaliers, and Indians, the Cincinnati Bengals, Reds, and the soccer team, which lacks a name, and the Columbus Clippers and Blue Jackets, the total value of all those teams, just less than $7 billion. They play in places paid for in part or in full by taxpayers. Still, they want the state to increase the amount of money, public money, available to attract big sporting events to the state. Things like All-Star games and the NFL Draft. Events that do bring in a lot of money to the state in terms of tourism dollars and sales taxes. Jim Siegel, why do they need more money, these teams and leagues that are worth so much money?
Well, the teams say that this is not about their money. This is about money to help the cities, help the counties, help the regional sports commissions pay the expenses needed to bring in these major events. The teams say they really don't make money on these. That this is a community outreach thing that they like, but that in the end of the day, it's not so much a revenue generator for the team as much as it is just a goodwill and a good PR and also just a benefit for the area. So that's where they're coming from. Yeah. Now, you know, there's some questions about how this bill would work, because it has to do with, you know, how much additional sales tax is going to be generated by this event, and we take half of that and we put it into the fund to help fund the next thing. And the question of how do you determine how much sales tax is because of the event and how much sales tax is just because of stuff that would have happened anyway is, you know, there's a lot of questions out there still about this. So.
I mean, the leagues make some money, and the NFL in particular has a lot of money.
It's a matter of priorities. You look, we have one of the worst unemployment rates in America. We have a lot of jobs that pay over $50,000 a year that we don't have anybody who's qualified to hold them because they're not properly trained and because getting college or advanced education is really important. Why don't we focus on stuff like that instead of giving money to the sports teams?
Mike, you're a sports fan. You're going to the Cavs game after you leave the studio.
Yeah, but give me a break, though. And whatever happened to fiscal conservatism? This is a terrible idea if the legislature passes this. And then we didn't even mention Hollywood has come in. They get $40 million a year in tax breaks. Now they want to increase that to $100 million. Are you kidding me? These are terrible ideas.
As soon as I can find out how much that private group that takes liquor profits from the state of Ohio and spends it on generating jobs in Ohio. Jobs Ohio. Until I can find out more about what they're spending their money on, I really don't care about any of this.
I did find it odd that the Cincinnati Reds said they didn't have access to the money when they wanted to bring the All-Star game here in 2015. And the Blue Jackets said they didn't have any money to bring the All-Star game for the NHL in 2015, Jim. Both those events occurred in those cities without the state help.
Well, the All-Star game in Cincinnati ended up getting help from a different fund or different way.
Okay.
So yeah, the question is, you know, could we still do these things without this money? And that's a long, ongoing debate that will continue. That is not only about attracting these, but it's about attracting a whole bunch of things. Would we still attract jobs without tax cuts? Would we still attract, you know, this and that without these property tax abatements and all kinds of things? But I will say the Browns testified in favor of this bill. If it passes, they can chalk it up as a win.
Yeah.
Yes, they can.
Oh, man.
All right. With that, we'll get to more off-the-record parting shots, and we'll start with Sandy Tice.
If you think your voice doesn't matter and your vote doesn't matter, just look at the changes that the kids from Parkland have made in a short period of time. They changed the law in Florida. I hope everybody stays engaged and energized, and if you're not registered to vote or you think you might not be registered to vote, please check out your voter registration and vote.
Mike.
Last week was Sunshine Week. I think the newspapers and our media has done a great job of highlighting the fact that our government is still struggling to give the people their records, or the people's records, not the government's records. I commend them for this. And on the heels of that, major litigation was filed this week against the Department of Commerce for not turning over documents as it relates to medical marijuana in Ohio.
Jim.
Ohio's February employment numbers, job numbers, were decent. Our unemployment rate has dropped to the lowest, I believe, since 2001. However, our income growth, I believe now, is also numbers out said that we rank 30th. So we still have some mixed numbers on the job front.
And Ann.
The best thing that sports teams can do is win. Ergo, the situation with the Browns, sad, very sad. But one team that is winning these days are the Columbus Blue Jackets. Go Jackets. Let's take it to 11. We might, by the time people watch this, it might already be over, but might not be.
They'll end up playing Pittsburgh in the playoffs because of all this success.
Yeah.
But anyway, also sports related, the Austin City Council took a small but measurable step towards stealing the crew, taking the crew from Columbus to Austin. But take a look at the site where they want to put it. It's in the middle of this dilapidated industrial park. How is that better than the state fairgrounds? Anyway, something for them to answer. That is Columbus on the Record for this week. Check us out online. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Connect to all of that at our website, wosu.org, where you can see each episode on demand. For our crew and for our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.